In this episode, Chantel Williams shares her background as a military brat and her transition from logistics to finance. She brought some of that experience to the Rose as our outside board representative from the Junior League of Houston. And that is just one of the things that the Junior League does for the community. Chantel goes on to tell us that being your own self-advocate is the most important job any woman can have. And she shares what it's like to represent a community that is often not heard and that has to speak up for themselves. When you subscribe to our show, you help us grow. Someone you know may need to hear this story, so please share with your family and friends. And consider supporting our mission. Your donation can help save the life of an uninsured woman. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. Thank you so much, Chantel, for being with us today, and I can't wait to talk about all the things that you've learned and that you've done, but we're just delighted to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So just tell us a little bit about your background, family, where you're from, those kind of things.
So it's always a tricky question to answer because I am a military brat, and both of my parents are actually from an island in the Caribbean. They're from an island called Dominica. So that has a lot of influence naturally, given that both of my parents are not from the United States. And then my mom was in the Navy, so we moved around a lot. So whenever I get asked, like, well, where are you from? I'm like, well, it's a long story. I claim Florida because that is where we were last. And we spent the most time there. But I was born in California. We moved to Hawaii for a few years. I was in Italy for elementary school. And then we eventually got to Florida. So we were very, very fortunate where we had all vacation destinations. So that was a plus.
Oh, yes.
Like we weren't in these obscure small towns. But we did move around a decent amount. But like I said, we landed in Florida. My mom retired near Destin, which is in the Panhandle of Florida. So I essentially grew up in a beach town. Which was nice. And then went to school in Tallahassee, Florida. So it was about 3 hours away at Florida State. And once I graduated, I actually ended up getting a job right before I graduated, like almost a year before. So I was offered a job in Tallahassee in logistics. So I said, all right, I guess I'm staying. I'm not moving from Tallahassee. Because my degree was in logistics and finance. And so I said, wow, not many people get to do what they went to school for.
Right.
I'm going to take this opportunity. It just happened to still be in Tallahassee. So I stayed in Tallahassee for a while, met my husband eventually in Tallahassee. And then I moved to Houston years later because, well, my husband is from a small town. He's from Atlantic City, but he has lived in large cities, and he had no desire to stay in Tallahassee.
Oh, my goodness.
So when we met, he had lived in Houston previously, and so he was like, so just so you know, as soon as we met, he's like, I do not plan to stay in Tallahassee. Like, I'm here right now, but this is not the long-term plan. I was like, that's fine. I want to move too. And I gave him my list of places that I wanted to move to. Texas was not on the list. And he was like, well, what do you think about Houston? And all I couldn't think of Houston, but I was thinking Texas. And I knew nothing about Texas other than what you see on TV. And I could not process. It's like, I don't see myself in Texas. Something about this just doesn't add up. And he's like, well, you just have to give it a shot. And I was like, yeah, I was very apprehensive. And at some point, I remember he said, oh, I have a surprise for you. And I was excited, like, oh, okay, I love surprises. He's like, oh, I got us concert tickets to the Jay-Z and Beyonce concert that's on tour when she was performing in these arenas. I was like, oh, that's great. And I'm assuming because we were in Florida and we're in Tallahassee, most of the time when you want to go to a concert, you have to go to Atlanta or Tampa or Miami. Like you have to go to a large city that's close by. And so I just assumed that that's where we were going. No. He had other plans.
So you wound up in Houston.
Because he surprised me with these tickets.
That's a great
That's in
story.
Houston.
Yes.
And so we came to Houston and he started looking around. He's like, well, let's just go see what houses look like. Needless to say, a few months later, we moved to Houston.
Yes.
So that is how I ended up here. And that was about 10 years ago now.
So you've had a long history, a very prestigious history with lots of international, national companies. But you've started your own.
Yeah, so that's I actually didn't start it. So my husband and I actually purchased the AFP Group, from a family here in Houston. And so I started my career out in logistics. So like I said, I was a logistics and finance major in school. And so I was doing the logistics track for a while. And it just so happened that my husband is a financial advisor. He was in it before I was. And I got to a crossroads in my life at one point and was trying to figure out, like, what is my next move going to be career-wise? Because I just wasn't feeling as fulfilled anymore. And I couldn't figure out which direction I wanted to go. And I'd gone to an event of his, and the advisors, there was a panel of financial advisors speaking, and they started talking about how impactful the job was. And it spoke to me almost immediately. It was almost like a switch went off because I was at this crossroads in my life where I'm trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do that can leave an impact on this world, that has a greater influence? And then I end up going to this function and I hear people talking about how much of an impact their career has on the lives of other people. And I just knew at that point, like, oh, you know what? I need to switch career paths. And so I became a financial advisor at that point. And a few years later, my husband and I got the opportunity to purchase the AFP Group. We were both working for a large company previously, a large broker-dealer, and then we were approached to purchase the AFP Group. And the AFP Group, so it stands for the Associates in Financial Planning, and it is actually one of the first financial planning firms in Houston. So it's over 50 years old. Yeah, so it's been around for a long time. So we're just carrying the legacy on.
Right,
we did not not invent this wheel, but it's been through 3 generations. And Gil Baker, who was the previous owner, he was ready to retire. His daughter still works for the company. She still works with us. She's an integral part of the company. But all of her kids who her last child just started college, none of them have any desire to be in finance whatsoever. Right. So we are picking up the torch and carrying on the legacy here in Houston.
So this concept of making an impact, is that part of what attracted you to the Junior League of Houston?
It is. That, and I really wanted to, I as a child, I'd always volunteered a lot. And it was mainly through the church, but I did a lot of volunteer work growing up. And when I went to college and then graduated, but still stayed in the same town that I went to school in, I did not realize the transition from student to working professional, what that would do to me. Because I realized, like, oh, your friends are all gone. You have to start over. You need to find a new purpose, new friends, new places to go, new hobbies. And so I was looking for a place that I could volunteer my time, but also make some new friends. And I heard some commercials about the Junior League, just promoting some of the functions that they have around town. I remember hearing about the Junior League from reading The Help. So I knew of the Junior League, but I didn't really know what they did. And it wasn't until I really started doing some research to see where I could spend my time and give back to the community that I did stumble upon the league and realized they're doing so much work and so much good work in the communities across the country that I was like, oh, this is an organization that I want to be a part of. You know, it's all women. And it's women that are like-minded. We all have that same goal in mind where we want to volunteer in the community and give back. And I just knew that it would be a good fit. So I joined the Junior League in Florida a few years out of college. And it's been 13 years that I've been in the Junior League. And so when I moved, I just transferred to the Houston.
To the Houston area.
Yeah, to the Houston League.
So you are the outside board representative for the Rose, which is a program the Junior League has had for many years, or is this a fairly new one?
It's been around for a few years now. It allows league members to actually sit on the board of nonprofits in the community, and really, organizations like it because league members are trained very, very well. That's one of the things that other organizations say about the Junior League is that we run a very tight ship. And so our volunteers are coming to their organization having a good understanding of how to run a committee, how to be a good volunteer, how to sit on a board. Those are all skills that we're learning while we're part of the Junior League. And so we get to bring that expertise with us to boards to sit on these nonprofit boards. And we're there as a non-voting member, but we're really just there as a resource and to bring our expertise from volunteering out in the community and saying, like, here, this is what we've been seeing out in the community from a totally different perspective.
I don't think I realized that part of the concept of what this program is designed to do and how it really does impact. So have you sat on other boards?
So this is the first one through Junior League that I've sat on. I've sat on some boards through my alma mater, through Florida State before, but this is the first outside board representative.
So you're not assigned to an organization. Don't you have a vote in it?
You do get to select which organization you want to be a part of. And it is it's a tough process and it's not open to everybody. So you do have to serve in the league for a certain amount of years and they want you to have some experience. So you are selected, but you do have to, put your name in the hat and say, like, this is what I want to do and this is an organization I want to work with. But then you also have to be selected. So, it's an honor to be able to have been chosen and to be serving in the role.
So why'd you pick the Rose?
So I learned of the Rose years prior, and it was completely in passing, actually. I think the Rose, somebody had spoken. So much like you had come to the league a few months ago and spoken at the league, I think that something along those lines had occurred. And we were at a meeting with one of my best friends who's also in the league, and the Rose came up. And she just casually said, oh, I know them. My mom actually got her first mammogram with them because they came to our church. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Wow, okay. And I didn't put too much more thought into it after that, but I thought that's really cool. And I know that because we don't have volunteer opportunities with the Rose, but we have the opportunities for us to give out grants and things of that nature, and things like the outside board representative that allow us to be exposed to organizations that we may not be as familiar with because we don't have volunteers there. And so I said, oh, okay, the Rose, that's really cool that you can get a mammogram at church. Interesting. I wonder how that works. And so then you fast forward a few years, and I was looking at the outside board representative options. And as I'm looking to see, like, is that something that I might want to do? Do I think that it would be a good fit? I see that the Rose is an option there. And I said, and I went to the website and I was reading about the mission. And it immediately spoke to me at that point, like, oh, okay, I think this would be a good fit, especially because I know that I'm one of few that had to even go through getting a mammogram at a very young age.
Very young age.
And I remember how scary it was. being told that I even needed to get one.
So did you find a lump in your breast? Or?
I did not. The doctor did.
The doctor
did
okay.
during one of my annual checkups.
And how old were you?
I was around 22, 23. Ooh. I was very, very young.
Yeah,
I mean,
scary.
I was fresh out of college. And really didn't know what to expect at this point, because I'm thinking, this has never been on my radar.
Right.
This has never been on my radar. And then I find myself at the doctor's office waiting for a mammogram. And as I sat in this room, and I'm the youngest person in there by far,
yes,
waiting, and I just couldn't believe, I was stunned that I was even in that situation. And because you don't know, I don't know if it's something to be concerned about or it could be nothing. And the doctor tells you that, it could be absolutely nothing, but it could also be something, so you can't delay.
Right.
And it was such a process.
Did you have an ultrasound also?
I did not have the ultrasound.
You had the mammogram.
It was just the mammogram. It was just the mammogram. It was, and when I say it was a process in terms of getting the mammogram approved. So I remember my insurance at the time, they did not want to cover it because I'm so young. So it wasn't deemed necessary. And so that was a fight. And then once it was approved, I still had to pay a significant amount out of pocket, and it was thousands of dollars. And again, I was fresh out of college. So I'm like, what? What do you mean I have to pay thousands of dollars for this? I could easily see someone without the resources saying, you know what? It'll be fine.
Take my chance.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll wait till
this
more
is a
serious.
story, Chantel, that we really hear all the time. And it's one of the inequities
Absolutely.
of every young woman facing the possibility of breast cancer. They're going to have to pay a whole bunch of money, and they're going to have to go through a big hassle getting their doctor to order it, convincing perhaps the doctor that you need it. That happens all the time. But it's just, it's really concerning to us because we diagnose something like 40% of all of the women that we diagnose are under 50, and 20% are under 40. And so, I mean, when you have women being diagnosed at 23, 24, you just know this whole system is wrong.
Oh, yes. Once you extrapolate those numbers across the country, across the world, I mean, that's a lot of people who are falling through the cracks.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
And particularly being a black woman, I maintain we should start screening at 30.
At least.
Because this whole, we know that it will happen earlier in the black women. We know that it will grow faster. We know that it's going to be biologically a different kind of cancer that's going to take a lot of extra chemo and treatment and all those things, even if you do survive. So, I think I'm trying to put the timing together here, but it's pretty phenomenal that your doctor actually saw that at that time, because back then, what was usually happening were the doctors go, oh, it's nothing, you're too young for breast cancer, you're too young to have a mammogram. It's actually, you were very lucky.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate. And honestly, I mean, you fast forward a few years when I was here in Houston, I remember I did find another lump, and this was totally sad. The one that was from when I was in my early 20s was very small, and I don't know that I would have found it on my own. But I found a lump, a few years ago, and I remember making the appointment to go in to see my OB/GYN and saying, I don't know if I should be concerned or not, but this just has popped up out of nowhere. And I remember the doctor being dismissive, despite the fact that I've had a previous history of it. But I guess because it was benign, it's just not a concern. And I remember having to advocate for myself and saying, well, look, I don't know if this is something, but this is certainly unusual. And I would like to confirm, that it is or isn't anything.
So you had to insist on it.
I did. And it was a a male, a white male, and it's very difficult for women in general to have to be able to advocate for themselves
Well,
for their
you're
health care
arguing with someone,
they're telling
yes,
you
yes.
that you don't know. Okay, I know my body, and I know this is unusual. I'm okay actually with paying for this to make sure that I'm okay. And it was just a hormonal change just due to like switching birth controls and something along those lines was how we explained like the reasoning behind it. But I remember being very concerned because like, this is not normal.
No.
And it was a very dismissive, like, oh, I think it's fine. I'm like, how do we know that?
No,
We're just
you don't.
in the hospital exam room right now. We
right.
don't know that for sure.
No, they
Can
can't
we verify
no,
that this is not something to be concerned about, please?
So do you think it was your past history or your own personality or the fact that you're very much in a, let's just say, male-dominated world at work? So
Yes.
you've had to learn to stand up for yourself,
Constantly.
Yeah.
I'm in a male-dominated field. I've been in this industry for many years now, but I'm young. I'm young. Most of the people that are my colleagues are 60 plus. Most financial advisors are older white males. And so I'm already up against that for my colleagues, much less our clients.
Yes.
Also don't typically look like us either. So I am constantly in a world where you do have to fight to be taken seriously. So I think that might be part of it is that I'm almost used to having to defend myself and what I'm saying to be true. But also I knew that I had a history and that it scared me enough back then to think, even though it turned out to be nothing, in the back of my mind, I'm always paranoid.
Of course.
Just because one day it might be different, although I have absolutely no family history of any cancer, much less breast cancer, that doesn't preclude me from suffering from that.
But, that's one of the situations that we have discovered. Women will have a lump, it's benign. Women will have another lump, it's benign. Then when the real thing comes along, it's like, oh, well, I've been through this, don't need to go through it again. And that's one of the things that's so important about having that annual mammogram. Now, you've always had to have surveillance.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And the only reason that there was that overlap was because I moved from one city to the next. And so it was like, oh, this is what we need to be doing. And I'm like, actually, yes, because I would be going anyway in a couple years, but I'm a new patient. You don't
What would
know
you have done if he didn't?
that's
order
a good
that?
question. I feel like I would have gotten a second opinion. I don't think it wouldn't have sat well with me or my husband or my mother to let it go.
Right.
But all of us are pretty involved and are advocates for our health. And it's not like that in every household. There are plenty of households, especially in the Black community, that do not trust doctors at all. Really, they don't trust any institution of any kind.
No.
And so they don't want to go to the doctor. So they're not looking for a reason to be seen, especially one that's going to cost them thousands of dollars out of pocket. So I can very much say that it's because of who my family is and how I grew up that allowed me to say, no, let's take this a step further and let me make sure that I stay on top of it. Education, I think, plays a big part in that.
And we've just not done enough in all of the communities.
No.
All of the population. We have not. It was kind of funny because, of course, I've been doing this a long time. But it was like once we made those inroads with the white population, we were done. And then we discovered, oh, well, we need to address Hispanic. Oh, well, we need to. And I'm always surprised because we had the same issues with the white population initially. Oh, do I really need this? Why is it important? And it's in my mind, it comes down to being a woman. It comes down to, our risk is being a woman, and our fallacy, if that's the right word, is not realizing how much we are going to have to stand up for ourselves, insist on, advocate. I just think that's still very foreign to women.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you don't have the resources or the knowledge to know that I need to stand up for myself in this situation, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So when you think about underserved communities that aren't going to the doctor because they don't have insurance, they're most certainly not thinking, oh, I need to advocate for myself.
Oh, no.
Most of the time, I mean, they're working, more than one job and have a family to take care of. The last thing they're concerned about is their health.
But they'll take care of the family.
Their health,
yes,
absolutely.
Yes,
we're always the last ones to take care of ourselves, unfortunately.
So go back to the junior league. Do you feel like your time as a member there has helped you even be stronger in that
Without
area?
a doubt. I mean, I think my time with the junior league has been amazing. Like, I am so grateful that I joined the organization when I did. It's been a major part of my life for a long time. I've been involved with it for, like I said, for 13 years. So I feel like it has given me a lot of skill sets that I would not have otherwise found necessarily in the workplace, because they give you the freedom to figure some things out.
Interesting.
So one of the biggest, it's a volunteer organization, but especially in Houston, every year you have to volunteer somewhere. You have to do something and devote a certain amount of hours of your time to a purpose that you're giving back. And some of those roles are leadership roles. And so you get to learn skills that you may not have otherwise had. So there are plenty of people that say, well, I don't know anything about budgeting, but you can learn to be a treasurer within the league that you may not ever have that opportunity to learn about in your everyday life. So it provides so many leadership opportunities if you want them. I feel like I can't say enough positive things about what the league has to offer, in addition to I call it the icing on the cake, that you also get to meet your lifelong friends. I mean, my best friends I met through the league. So,
and you're making an impact, and
exactly, on the bigger part of it is that you're able to give back to the community. I mean, we do so much in the community, and with large organizations down to small organizations, we're able to make a difference. And I think it's great. Like, I love being able to work with women and children. That's what and I've always been passionate about. So I'm glad that I get that opportunity to do that. I do it in my professional life. I get to help people, but it is a completely different type of help that I get to offer through the league.
So what have you learned since being with the Rose? This is like your second year?
My second year.
Second year of 3. I mean, it's a real commitment of time, and you're expected to come to all the meetings, and you're expected to be on a committee or of some kind.
Yep.
So what have you learned since you've been with us?
Gosh, I feel like there's a few things that I've been able to learn just in terms of sitting on the board. The board that I've been on previously were not as large. And so just being able to sit on a board that is of a good size and to learn about the organization has been just monumental, to be able to bring that awareness just to my circle of friends and network. Or like when clients come and say like, oh, I just got diagnosed with breast cancer, and I can have at least a basic conversation about like what that is going to look like. That's something that I just never have been able to do before. And I feel like that being a part of the Rose has just given me, like, it's just opened the curtain to a whole nother world that I really was not a part of before. And being able to at least advocate for women, like, it wasn't top of mind to necessarily even tell somebody, you really should go and get your mammogram. Like, I think it's important now, as more and more of my friends are over 40, and I can tell them, with confidence.
Right.
Like, please take this seriously and go and get your checkups, because you don't understand what the statistics look like out there because it's not discussed. But we are at risk, and most of, at least my circle, we all have decent jobs. So it's not necessarily a monetary concern. It's purely I just didn't think that this was something that I needed to pay attention to. And I'm always busy, so I don't
Awareness,
make the time.
yes, and being too. But nothing has the influence like a friend.
Exactly.
So I think that's the other message that we want our listeners to hear. Yes, you can make a difference with your friends.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things that being the outside board representative has done, is it's allowed me to be able to then project that message to my network of people about the importance of going to get your mammograms, and telling people that may not have access that actually you do.
Right.
You do have access. Right. Yeah. I think that's also important. Like, I was, when I went to my family practice doctor a few months ago, I ended up needing to go and get x-rays done for something minor. And she hands me the sheet, and I see on there it's for x-rays and for mammograms, and the rose is on there. And I was so thrilled to see it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see
that is good.
That the
good
rose is on here. Especially because
yeah.
I live on the north side. I'm in Spring, Texas. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I love that you guys have this on there. And she's like, oh, I know the Rose. They're a great organization. I refer people there all the time. And I was so happy to hear that, that the tentacles are making
getting
it
out.
far and wide.
Yes. There was a time when that was not the case. But I think the more that women know, we have only grown by word of mouth. Yeah, that it is our patients, our friends, our supporters that continue to help us grow and reach the women that we want to reach the most, and that is the uninsured.
And the work that you guys do, it's great. I love being a part of it. And, when I told you that my friend told me about what I now know was the mobile mammography program. Right. And when she first mentioned it, I thought it was really cool. And now that I know so much more about it, I'm like, oh, this is phenomenal. Like, we need this everywhere.
Oh, yes.
We need it everywhere.
Going to where women are and eliminating that travel and making it easy. There's nothing easy about going to the doctor. But when we can make it easy, it makes a difference.
Yeah, especially for the uninsured, because they most certainly are not going to be the ones to proactively find themselves in the doctor's office to get a checkup.
So certainly we've learned today the importance of the Junior League and the importance of all the work that they do in the community, but also this one particular program that allows you to sit on nonprofit boards and for us to gain the knowledge that you have. And it's just such a wonderful combination.
It is. Yeah. It is. I think it works out very well, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Well, we are so glad that you're on our board. And I so appreciate you coming today all the way from Spring to be with us. And
luckily my office is in the Heights, so it actually isn't too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. But we do appreciate that, and good messages for all women.
I agree. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Speak Podcasting and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish. It's essential.